All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. We're in the middle of the summer. Yay. It's hot and muggy. It hasn't gotten too terribly hot in southeastern PA. Only low 90s, so that's been good. Appreciated that. So I'll get right into it here. Our presentation today is a more comprehensive update from the local policy and practice work group from the three main leaders, Ian, Dave, and Steve. As we know, the meeting is being recorded. Please stay muted unless you want to speak up, but feel free to speak up. The recordings are all found. Historic recordings are all found here at the resources page, along with a lot of other information. Again, just to review, these meetings are every third Thursday of the month, 2:30 to 3:30. This is the same Zoom link every time. Save it for your records if you like to. All are welcome. I do send out emails in advance to remind people about the meeting. So if you have others in your groups or others that you know of would like to attend these meetings, please pass their emails on to me and I'll add them to the distribution list. Reminder of who is attending these meetings. It's folks that are working directly in the Delaware River Watershed Initiative, as well as folks that are working in the Delaware Basin, but not necessarily directly associated with the DRWI. And then we have a few folks that are attending from outside the DRB. Stroud Center supports these meetings and our general support in the Delaware River Basin via the DRWI and via Seesaw. 4 States, 1 Source is the website for the DRWI. The Delaware River Watershed Initiative is a much bigger effort than just this Stroud Center community science effort. Consortium for Scientific Assistance to Watersheds, or Seesaw, is a PADEP funding source that allows the Stroud Center to provide support to watershed groups and schools in Pennsylvania, anywhere in Pennsylvania. Particularly, we've been using it within the Delaware Basin. So feel free to be in touch if you'd like any sort of more extensive support. And we can potentially provide that via Seesaw. So these meetings are simply a time for us to all check in and discuss things. We provide updates from here at the Stroud Center on the Delaware Basin Monitoring and EnviroDIY, and then we have presentations almost every time on a wide variety of topics. Our immediate team on the community science is myself, Rachel Johnson, Krista Reeves with Musconetcong Watershed Association, and who also serves as a Stroud technician, and Shannon Hicks, the inventor and engineer of the Mayfly data loggers and the EnviroDIY monitoring stations. And then 2 primary master watershed stewards, Carol Armstrong and George Seeds. They are among many, many other master watershed stewards who are supporting a lot of different monitoring projects and EnviroDIY monitoring stations across Pennsylvania. The Stroud Center leads with regard to DRWI as a whole are John Jackson, Matt Earhart, and Dave Arscott. Just as kind of a Stroud Center perspective on this work, our primary goal continues to be to support watershed groups and others in using monitoring stations and doing monitoring for their own purposes, for their own data, for their own education, for their own outreach. Secondarily, we are supporting those efforts by doing data analysis and helping teams to develop tools to do better work, to do better monitoring work, to better understand data, and to tell better data stories. So I'm just going to go straight into just our general updates from the Stroud Center. First and foremost, I wanted to mention, some may know this, some may not, but we are coming to the end here of Rachel's direct assistance with the community science and technology component at the Stroud Center. Rachel will no longer be able to provide EnviroDIY support, sadly. However, she is starting a master's degree with the University of Delaware, and it is in direct association with the Stroud Center. She's going to be working and has already started working with Mark Papak, one of the Stroud researchers. And there is a nice article written up about Rachel on the Stroud webpage. So you can go to that. Here's a URL that you can grab off the screen right now if you like, and read up on what Rachel's going to be doing and what people have to say about her. There's lots of, as you might expect, there's lots of nice quotes from people singing Rachel's praises. So congrats to Rachel, and thank you for so much great work and for being such a wonderful person to work with and just spend time with. And I don't know if you like you want to say anything, Rachel, feel free, but no need.
Sure. Yeah. One thing I'll add is I am still going to be actively working with the EnviroDIY stations for my master's research, which is all focused around phytoplankton studies in the Delaware Basin. So you might still see me on these monthly meeting calls. I'd still like to stay involved in that capacity, and who knows where my future will stand with the Stroud Center. But I've enjoyed the past 6 years so much it's hard to even put to words, but yeah, you haven't seen the last of me, that's for sure.
Well, that's great. We certainly hope that Rachel can be involved as much as possible with our work, and especially in the future as she completes her master's degree. I'm sure will go great.
Did you say, David, or Rachel, what your program is?
I'll be going to the University of Delaware for a master's in water science and policy.
Okay.
Yeah. And the research is all National Science Foundation funded. We have right now, I think, 7 EnviroDIY stations that are set up with chlorophyll and turbidity sensors. And we're using that data alongside field sampling techniques to try to differentiate benthic algae versus different algae communities in the water column and how that differs throughout the Delaware Basin.
That is so amazing. And, you know, David, and Rachel, I just have to mention that Saranya is interested in this topic as well. Of course, Saranya is interested in a lot of things, but I just want to put that out there because maybe it's a direction that she would be more interested in going through. So just putting that thought out there.
Well, that's
Awesome.
great. And
Good
Saranya is a high school student that Carol's been mentoring for a number of years now.
I think she's going into her senior year now. And
so that's great.
Amazing. Good to know.
Thanks, Carol and Rachel. All right, so moving on, just reminding folks that there's lots of resources at this webpage. Please feel free to use that. There's recordings, there's guidance documents, there's presentations from conferences, so on and so forth. Just revisiting that there's a new tab for entering your field visit data on the webpage. Requesting people continue to fill out a data form whenever you go and visit a site. And there's also this service request tab. If you're having problems with your station and it seems significant, feel free to go to this tab and fill out a service request form. It's a simple form. All you need to do is basically put in contact information. And then if you want, you can include additional information for us. But this will just allow us to keep it more organized as to who is really needing direct Stroud Center on-site service for their stations. We're still just continuing to support groups and doing snapshots, salt and water temperature. I really should have here just also in just building out monitoring programs, developing monitoring programs, tweaking monitoring programs. I've been really talking with a lot of different groups lately about just developing their approaches to monitoring and integrating that with education and stuff like that. So there's a lot of groups doing similar things, and it seems like it's very easy to build on what others are doing. So please be in touch if you have questions about your monitoring approaches or data or whatever. We have the ability to provide support. And then also, just as far as social media is concerned, if you'd like Diane Huskinson at the Stroud Center to help you with just getting your message out via social media. Diane writes a lot of nice stories, does a lot of nice social media posts. And she's always looking for good stories to put out there, that are just good environmental stories, but also show like good, community building and collaborations and teamwork and stuff like that. So feel free to be in touch about that as well. Coming months, Megan Fork with Westchester University is going to be presenting next month. John's going to talk in September of salt science. I'm going to talk in October on monitoring of salt. We have an open space on the 16th. I'm considering working with a number of local high school folks who are doing some work and giving them an opportunity to do 5 to 7 minute presentations here. So if any of you have ideas for that, Carol mentioned Saranya. There's a few others that may be interested. So be in touch if you have ideas for that or people that you might think would be interested. All right. So this is Megan. She's been involved with a lot of different work going on, some associated with Stroud. She is a kind of urban ecology person, so she's going to give us a kind of an overview, but lots of nice examples, real life data on the urban stream syndrome in southeastern PA. And I think Megan is actually in the meeting today. So any questions before we move on at this point? All right. So today we have a nice comprehensive progress update from the local policy and practice work group. The presenters today are going to be Ian Brastow. He's with the Lapatcon Creek Initiative and the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. He's the policy associate and Lapatcon Creek Initiative program manager. Dave Manning is a master watershed steward with Green Valley's Watershed Association and Valley Creek Restoration Partnership. He is a retired cell biologist from Penn. And Steve Tricarco is also a master watershed steward with the Tulpehocken Creek Watershed Association, Berks Nature, and the Berks County Conservation District. He's a semi-retired mechanical engineer and has worked with his local township board for decades. So these guys have been working diligently with support from the rest of the folks in the policy practice group. Myself, Krista Reeves, Alex Jackson, and others have been working with them and developing some really nice draft guidance materials, which they are going to talk about today. Here's the full list of folks in the policy and practice work group. And we meet every first Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. It's an hour-and-a-half meeting. If you're interested in being involved with this group, please be in touch. And with that, I will stop my share and allow Ian, are you starting off? And allow Ian to take it over.
All right, so 1 second while I actually find, there we go. All right, so a little bit, we're excited to, before we get started, we're excited as a group to share a little bit of an update on what we've been doing in the local policy practice work group. As we've given this talk a little bit, each presentation, just small updates. As many of you know, we've come up with a short-term charge, which is effectively to develop the best way of using the monitoring data, which was for the most part conductivity, temperature, depth, and turbidity, to advise and influence municipal entities. To do this, we have gone through the process of meeting. We started first meeting in January, which is when we really started forming the group. But the first meeting didn't happen until February. By March, we developed that short-term charge, which we just covered, as well as hosted multiple events and talked with Alan Hunt from MWA, who talked with the larger group on watershed councils. But prior to that, he talked with us, gave us a little bit of advice and direction, from which we were able to really fine-tune our short-term charge and really guide this discussion. By May, we had an outline for deliverables and hosted a conversation cafe with Power and Peck with Tally. What we've decided to do is create 5 documents. The first 4 are topic related, temperature, conductivity, depth, and turbidity. Those are the main categories of our deliverables. And then we also have a 5th document, which we've been colloquially calling document 5. We're still developing a good name, but for now, I think of it as an outreach engagement document, which I'll talk to a little bit more about in the next slide. For each of the topics, we have a primer and a handout, 1-pager. The primer documents are detailed, very in-depth, robust documents that are oriented towards our advocates. So people who are trying to get a primer on subjects that they might not be experts in, but will be expected to know the nuances of those topics when presenting to municipal entities. This is a high-level breakdown of each of the topics, of interaction points, what the science is saying, and David Manning will tell you a little bit more about where we fall on our first document, which is our temperature primer. We also are developing handout 1-pagers, which are less detailed, but still very useful when as outreach tools. And these are primarily geared towards giving out to environmental council leaders or EACs or people who are interested in learning more about the topics and how to interact with their municipal governments, why the municipal government might be interested in these topics. Very good for developing that communication, that line of communication. For each of these, we have a review process, which we have started. It first starts as an internal review. So amongst the group, we take a look at the document, we fine tune it to a point where we feel confident. Then we hand it off to external sources, some people at Stroud, and people who are experts in the field, get their perspectives. And once that part of the process is done, then it will be provided publicly, where it will live as a living document that can be updated as needed, as more information comes out, as more people join the group, and as more perspective is added. And with that, I believe David Manning, I believe you are up.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ian. So what I'm going to be doing today is providing an update on the first of 4 what we refer to as primer documents. The rationale for the primer document concept is that in order for you to make a difference at a municipal level, in order to gain the trust of decision makers, you really need to know something in depth about what you're talking about. In this case, we're talking about temperature. And the official title of the document, courtesy of Tally MacArthur actually, is putting stream temperature data to work. So this document is divided, and I've reported on this previously to you as an update. This is divided into 5 sections. The first section discusses determinants of stream temperature, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Section 2, temperature thresholds for aquatic organisms. Section 3, land use and development of concern as it pertains to stream temperature. Section 4, when and how to approach municipalities as it relates again specifically to changes or prospective changes in the stream temperature. And section 5, case studies. And case studies will consist of things like exercises or informative anecdotes or contrived scenarios, anything that emphasizes the information in the document per se. In terms of progress on this, section 1 is now completed, and I'll discuss that. Section 2 is underway. Carol Armstrong has joined us in this section, as well as section 4, with her knowledge base and her perspective on the things that need to be conveyed in these 2 sections in particular. It's underway in the sense that we've already begun writing. We have an outline which is very detailed and that I'll present to you. Section 3, that's dealing with land use and development of concern, that is now completed. Section 4, when and how to approach municipalities, again with the help of Carol Armstrong, that's underway. And section 5 has not yet been begun, but that should go fairly quickly. Okay, with regard to section 1, which is now finished at the level of a fairly polished first draft, this refers to determinants of stream water temperature. We discuss the subsections of this section, the contributions of groundwater to stream temperature, air to stream temperature. Those are conductive forms of heat transfer. Solar radiation, that's infrared, that's a different form of heat transfer than precipitation, evaporation, and stream mixing, as they all relate to stream water temperature. This turns out to be a long section. In fact, all the sections are turning out to be long. And you know, while we are endeared to them, as of course we have a bias as the writers of these kinds of things, I need to talk about that at least briefly at the end of my presentation. Okay, section 2, this is what I'm doing with Carol Armstrong. Both of us are working on this. This relates to temperature thresholds for aquatic organisms. We're going to be starting with preliminary concepts, which we both think are important. The nature of aquatic organismal responses to changes in temperature as reflected in 2 settings, the laboratory and in ecological settings. We'll be talking the difference between euthermal versus stenothermal organisms, spatial heterogeneities in streams. This turns out to be really important, and we actually dwell on it at several points in this document in the context of what's referred to in ecology as refugia. And also food change derangements as a function of temperature. Then the real action begins with the thresholds part of this, the temperature thresholds for fish. Our lead on this in the sense of the detail that we want to provide, and with the extensive detail, will be brook trout. And this is obvious considering the importance of brook trout within the DRB. It's not to the exclusion, however, of other fish that are relevant to the DRB, so they too will appear in this subsection to the section 2. Then we'll also look at temperature thresholds for benthic macroinvertebrates. Our lead will be mayflies. That's my decision actually based on the vast amount of work that has been accomplished at Stroud that really goes into all this in a lot of detail. But again, it's not to the exclusion of other invertebrates that are relevant to the DRB. Section 3 is done, at least at this finished, polished first draft. Land use and development of concern. We're looking in terms of impervious surface, and specifically the effects of impervious surface temperatures on groundwater temperature, that's one, runoff temperature and air temperature, all as they relate to stream temperature. Deforestation, obviously, in the sense of solar radiation. Impoundments, for example, dams, as they relate to obstructions in stream flow that in turn alter temperatures upstream and downstream of the impoundment, and discharge of heated effluents is the fourth subtopic to this section. And the fourth section on which Carol and I are working, it relates to approaching municipalities. We start off with, and this is in outline form now, it's in progress, when to approach municipalities, and this can be based on monitoring data and data that tracks changes in water temperature over a period of time, which for some watershed organizations, they have much going for them in terms of historic tracking and contemporaneous tracking, and are able to make an argument based on this. But it also involves what might alarm you as a prospective change, something in terms of plan development or changes in watershed that you think might have an effect on stream temperature. We'll also be talking about factors that motivate municipalities with regard, again, to stream temperature as our perspective. There'll be, of course, some municipalities that will be swayed by arguments of economics because they rely on fishing and other forms of aquatic recreation as a base of activity. But other municipalities, perhaps an overlapping set of municipalities, will be swayed more by stream temperature as a proxy for other temperature issues within the community. And additionally, community sentiment regarding the environment can never be discounted. I am of the belief, and I don't think I'm optimistic in this, that most communities have a sense for what the environment should be, and it's a positive sense for what the environment should be. So part of factors that would motivate municipalities would be congruence with that thought. For example, within educational systems, within hunting and fishing groups, within scouting groups, and so forth. And then the final part of this is shaping municipal decisions. So under this heading, there will be tools recommended in a separate document that are far more extensive and relate to all the primer documents. And that's something that Steve Tricarico will talk to you about. Being able to convey the importance of refugia, this seems like a simple sell, and I believe it is, and that can be really important in how decisions are made. And then finally, understanding and being able to argue for various forms of remediation for existing problems and for problems that can be seen on the horizon. And this is my final slide. These are the deliverables as it relates to the temperature data document. The document itself, as I've already shown you, is sections 1 through 5. All the sections are long. And I don't think most individuals will not want to sit down and devote an entire evening or two to reading these documents. We're really working on making them readable, telling what's really essentially important for everyone to know before they go to bat for their stream in a municipal setting, but this will be a long document. For that reason, we will also create a bulleted summary of this document, just a quick look kind of sheet that apprises everyone of what's important in a bulleted form. And then additionally, as Ian mentioned, and Steve will go through, we're developing, Steve actually already has, developing a template that is adaptable to individual settings, individual municipalities for handout to various community groups as it relates again to stream temperature and the importance of stream temperature analytics. Okay, and that is it.
Okay.
Could I
Steve?
ask a question?
Of course.
My name is Bert Thielander. I live in Orange County, town of Deer Park, and I talked with David about some of what you're describing. So when you approach municipalities, do you approach elected officials? Do you approach appointed officials? Do you approach like town boards, planning boards, or county, town? Like, where do you begin?
So that's a great question, and it's a great lead into what Steve is going to talk about.
Okay,
We refer
thank
to
you.
that as document 5, and that's the bag of techniques and everything in relation to what you're asking about. So I'll let Steve handle that.
Got it. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I don't have a video camera on my desktop here, so I'm the man behind the curtain here, the man behind the waterfall. Anyway, first of all, thank you, Ian and David, for your presentations. I'm going to be addressing 2 documents that I've been working on over the past couple months here, and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully everybody can see that. Everybody see this, Dave Bressler?
Got it.
Got
You
it.
want to put
Okay.
it on presentation mode?
Yeah,
Steve?
sure. Okay, so the first document, I'm going to be very brief about this because we don't have a lot of time, and each of these documents I could probably spend an hour or 2 talking about. But again, the general concept is for each of the 4 topics that Dave mentioned that we're producing an in-depth document to provide some deeper understanding for all the users. There's also going to be what we're calling a supplemental handout. And the purpose of this is to provide information, something that could be, as stated, handed out if you're attending a municipal meeting at the end of the meeting when you're leaving, or even before you attend, you can give this sort of a fact sheet concept. It's going to be just a one to 2 pager, most likely a single page with both sides printed out. So all 4 of them will follow a similar layout as described here. It's the first part will describe the importance of the subject. Then we're going to move into why there may be a problem. Then we're going to identify the causes of the problem, provide a local example. What can the residents and homeowners do to help? What can municipal leaders do to help? And conclusions. So, and then also some sources of additional information. So I have here a link to the actual document that I worked on so far for the stream temperature. And this document here basically has been reviewed by some of the people in our committee right now, and I'm not sure Dave Banning or Ian exactly what we want to do next. I have gotten some comments back and I have incorporated them. So this, as far as I'm concerned, is ready to go to the next level of review. And I'll just go through it quickly with everybody here because I have a lot more to talk about in the next document. So again, as noted in that outline form, we have here what the problem is in this particular subject. We're talking about steam temperature. We talk about why water temperature is going up. Why is rising steam temperature a problem? What causes steam temperature to rise? And the concept here is that these handouts will also be sort of a living document that can be modified by the user. So in this case here, I tailored it for the Tulpehoken Creek watershed, which is where I live. So anything that's done in red here, as you notice, these titles up here, these are things that could and should be changed by the user so that it reflects, their locality. Again, here we have, Tulpehoken Creek watershed. This should be replaced by the local watershed association if there is one in your area. And then on the second page, here's what can be done to help resolve the problem. And we break it down for homeowners and residents, municipal and private property owners, and then some conclusions, and then additional sources of information. And again, here are some of these items that are highlighted in red. In red are items that could be modified by the user for their particular locale. So if there's any questions, if you can please hold them till when I get done, because again, I have a lot more to talk about in the next document. So I'm going to move on to that here. Okay, I'm going to get a little dramatic here for you folks. Make sure you're not sleeping yet. So on April 22nd, 1970, 20 million Americans, which at time was 10% of the total population of the United States, took to the streets, parks, and auditoriums to demonstrate against the impacts of 150 years of industrial development, which had left a growing legacy of serious human health impacts. The protest led to almost immediate change in legislation, with the acts to ensure clean air and water passed by the end of the year. Pretty amazing accomplishments, if you ask me. On Thursday, May 25th, 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court released its ruling on Sackett versus EPA. The decision dramatically narrowed the scope of the Clean Water Act, undoing protections that have safeguarded the nation's water for over 50 years. So back in the 70s, apparently individual U.S. states and local municipalities were not fulfilling their charge of protecting the health and welfare of their local citizens. The U.S. federal government had to step in and take charge. Now, over 50 years later, the federal government is relaxing restrictions on environmental damage. So it's time for we the people to focus on local government as a protector of the public's health and welfare. So how do we start this journey? Well, we begin by engaging with our local municipalities. So what I'm going to be talking about here is sort of a lot of these concepts that I'm going to speak to are included in the document. I'm not going to get into great detail on the document 5 itself, but a lot of this information is incorporated into that document. So I'm kind of giving you the basis for why we're even producing this engaging municipalities documents. So let me begin awakening your awareness of these important local governing bodies by providing some definitions and descriptions. Municipalities are responsible for governing specific geographic areas. They perform an important role in providing essential services and managing local affairs. Their structures and functions vary from one state to another and from one municipality to another. And I can't overemphasize that statement. Their structure varies from one state to another and from one municipality to another. So there's no one size fits all. That's a very important thing to keep in the back of our minds. But first of all, let me throw a disclaimer in at this point. Although I've been a planning commission member in Bern Township, Berks County, Pennsylvania for over 20 years, my experience is limited to my township and my state. Although much of the advice I will be presenting today is applicable far and wide, it is of the utmost importance that you get out there and learn about your local governing bodies, as none are the same. Now back to my story. Municipalities play a vital role in ensuring the well-being and quality of life for their residents. They should address the specific needs and challenges of their communities. Local governments in Pennsylvania have a multitude of responsibilities, and they may include providing public services such as water supply, sewerage, waste management, urban planning, zoning, public safety, which includes police and fire departments, parks and recreation, taxation and financial management, local governance and representation, infrastructure development, such as maintaining and improving local roads, bridges, public buildings, and even streetlights. And last but not least, environmental protection, such as meeting MS4 requirements. So I know most of you people in the audience here are familiar with the MS4 program, but for some that may not be, let me just talk about that a little bit here. So the MS4 is an acronym for Municipal Separate Sewer and Stormwater Systems. Stormwater regulations associated with the Federal Clean Water Act are administered under the MS4 program by the Environmental Protection Agency. In Pennsylvania, the DEP manages the MS4 program, but it is implemented by the municipalities. So it's sort of a pass down thing. You know, the government states what needs to be done, passes it down to the state level, and then the state level kicks it down to municipalities and say, here, take care of this. And sometimes this is referred to as an unfunded mandate, as the state mandates the municipality to meet these requirements, but the state does not provide funds to municipalities to accomplish these activities. Some townships use money from their general fund to pay for it. Others have started adding an additional fee to their residents' water bills. And some have applied for a waiver saying, well, this really shouldn't apply to me, while others try to ignore the regulations entirely. Again, different places have different ways of dealing with it. But what is it and why am I focusing on this? To answer the first question, the regulation requires 6 minimum activities to be performed by the MS4 municipality. They include public education and outreach on stormwater impacts, public participation and involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site runoff control, post-construction stormwater management, and pollution prevention, good housekeeping. And why am I talking about this? Because this may be your key to opening the door to municipal engagement. Now, I went through a whole list of all the responsibilities of what a municipality may be taking on. And everybody has to realize, at least in Pennsylvania, many of these officials are volunteers. These guys have families, a lot of them have full-time jobs, and they're doing this kind of in their free time. So they already have a full plate load. But hold on a second. Let me take a step back, catch our breaths. I want to make sure I still have everybody's attention. So please come back to your screen, put down your sandwich, stop feeding the cats. Sticking with the food concept, I'm also getting hungry, but I can't put anything in my mouth just yet, besides maybe my foot. What I've been talking about up to now is the appetizer for the main dish, which is the mysteriously labeled document 5. That serving requires your active engagement. We need all of you to read through it, digest it, let us know if you have any constructive comments. The document has a limited shelf life, and if you do not get back to us, you will have missed your opportunity to contribute to this delicious dessert. Because when we are through with the review process, this document 5, along with documents 1 through 4, will be for your use in preparing to put the data you have been collecting for all these years to use in championing change for a better environment in your hometown. But let me get back to the story. How do municipalities go about carrying out these responsibilities? Well, in the case of Pennsylvania, the local entities have considerable autonomy in making decisions and implementing policy that directly affects their communities. So where do the municipalities go to receive guidance? As I mentioned before, a lot of these people are volunteers. Some of them only last for 1 or 2 terms of service. So it isn't like there's a template that they typically follow. However, the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code is the main source of guidance for them. The MPC is a state law enabling townships to enact their comprehensive plan, which is basically a way that they are driving towards their future. And it has to be very well detailed as the MPC directs. And also townships enact zoning and subdivision land development and official map regulations. Also, under the Pennsylvania law, the public has a right to access and participate in the planning process. So where is the intersection of DRB and EnviroDIY concerns and municipality responsibilities and priorities? It could be that your local government lacks ordinances protecting the environment, or their existing ordinance regarding environmental requirements are not being followed or not being enforced, or the MS4 requirements are not being met. So how do we establish relationships with the municipalities that enable us to work with them, build bridges, and influence their decision-making? This is where document 5 can help. The document is intended to walk you through the process of understanding local government structure and function. It also provides guidance on identifying, talking to, and collaborating with appropriate municipal decision makers. Engaging municipal leaders is a key link in using your data to champion necessary changes to protect the natural environment. So in regards to the document itself, sorry for the delay here. I lost my link.
Any questions from anyone while we wait?
So essentially what's in here in document 5 is, first of all, the importance of engaging municipalities, where I mentioned some of the things that I already went through here in my initial presentation here. But things like, well, let me address a question that came up earlier on. Where do we start? So you have to start by trying to understand what's going on with your specific municipality. Like I mentioned earlier on, it's at least in the state of Pennsylvania, they're all very different. I've probably been to at least a half a dozen other municipalities to present information about our watershed, basically just to introduce ourselves. I wasn't there specifically to ask them to enact any ordinances or to clean up any mess in their backyard, simply for an introduction. And I was really amazed at how different all these organizations are from one to the next. Some of them, there's kind of one guy that just runs the whole show. And I'm talking about typically the elected officials meetings. Those are the guys that are in a position to make changes. Most municipalities do have some type of boards to assist the elected officials, and those are appointed people. Like myself on the planning commission, I'm an appointed position. I wasn't elected. So I can make a recommendation to the supervisors, which is the municipal board in our township that can enact ordinances or make changes. But I'm not in a position to make them myself, only recommendations. But anyway, in the document, it starts about talking about why it's important to engage municipalities, things which I already mentioned to you here. And again, in the state of Pennsylvania, the municipalities do have quite a bit of ability to make significant changes at the local level. There is, again, I put some links in the document which gets you to some sample ordinances to help you understand what may be in there. Number one thing is the research and preparation. You have to come to understanding. There's some places to get information. A lot of local governments now have their own websites, and sometimes those websites will provide you with a link to their ordinances, which again is a key thing. You need to understand what they already have before we go in there and try to change anything or find out what they're not following. And again, building relationships, another key element. You want to start off trying to be friends rather than going in as an adversarial role, because I've seen that myself. It does not work. You need to try to get them on your side. Effective communication. You need to understand what's going on at the meetings before you even attend. Some townships actually do have videos. I think Dave Manning's township, they videotape their meetings, so you can ahead of time preview some of the prior meetings to get a feel for how they operate. So there is some mechanisms out there to get a head start on getting to the communication level. Once you start getting the understanding, then you can start developing a strategy for what your issue is and what you're planning to try to change. And then, of course, we need to engage in constructive dialogue, not be adversarial. And then there's the follow-up and then the conclusion. And in addition, there's sort of a supplemental document that goes along with this. And I've tried to put together, having personally been through this process myself over the years, in order to start working with the municipalities is really a very tedious and long step-by-step approach, which you want to do if you want to be successful. And as I mentioned here, as you can see, we're talking third meeting, fourth meetings. Typically, the townships will only have one meeting a month for their particular boards, whether it
Steve.
be Yes, sir.
Steve, if I may interrupt, are you meaning to be sharing something for people to see right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was. Sorry, Dave. Actually, yeah, let me show it.
Sorry.
Thanks. Can you see it now?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe you can make it a little larger.
Okay,
That's
so
good.
sorry,
Good, good.
folks, I was skimming through it pretty quick. You probably couldn't have read as I was paging through it anyway. But this last part of it, which is the appendix, which is a step-by-step, again, just the overall highlight here. Just want to give you a taste of it that, it's a lot of work. It really is. If you want to be effective, as mentioned in the main part of the document, you got to educate yourself what you want to champion. And of course, that's what the other 4 documents are all about, giving you a good solid foundation and what you're going to be talking about. Then you got to educate yourself about the municipality. Again, document 5 kind of walks you through how you go about doing that. The next thing, and probably the most important thing, is you actually have to attend the meetings to start understanding the dynamics, like who runs the meeting, who gets the attention. Some of the municipalities rely on their engineers and their lawyers to make a lot of decisions for them. They just kind of nod their heads. Other ones want to be completely involved, and they want to be running the show. Next, you need to get yourself a strategy. How you going to, if you want to make a presentation, how are you going to go about doing that? So again, this all involves going to meetings. So by the time you go into the third meeting, you might want to be contacting the municipality to get added to the agenda. And that might only be as an introduction thing. Because again, these guys are very busy. Some townships, like my municipality, limits to public speakers to 3 minutes. Now, if you have something that's very crucial to the community and you want to spend more than 3 minutes, you can basically ask the secretary to contact one of the supervisors in our case and say, hey, look, I'm going to need more than 3 minutes. And nine times out of 10, I'll say, yeah, no problem, but don't take, an hour, because we want to go home and eat dinner too. But typically there is limits on how much you can speak. So again, the first time you go there to publicly introduce yourself, it's going to be just sort of a very brief overview. And now here's the key thing. If it's an MS4 municipality, which you can find, if I have a link here, you can go to this link and find out if it is an MS4 municipality. You can go there and you can tell them how you're going to help them. I mean, that's the best way to start the relationship. What can I do for you? Because most of the municipalities I'm familiar with have not been doing what they need to do as far as MS4 goes. Now, believe it or not, when I gave a presentation to some of the municipalities about my Watershed Association, they use that as credit for one of the MS4 requirements, which is public education. So you can help them and kind of let them know that ahead of time. Hey, I want to come talk to you, and not only I'm going to teach you, or you're going to learn about my association, but you're going to be able to meet some of your requirements that the state is imposing on you. And then, of course, by the 5th meeting, you're no longer just a face in the crowd. They know you by your first name. They see you sitting there. They say hello when you walk into the meeting. That's the kind of direction that you want to be heading here. And then if you do get to the point where you have a problem, whether it's you see that there's an ordinance that's not being followed, or there's something that there's a need for an ordinance that's not there, then you can start asking for them to reciprocate to do something for you, since you've now been doing something for them. And then again, these meetings only happen once a month typically, so that's a big pause in between when you ask for something and whether they respond or not. So you want to make sure that you get an answer to whatever you may have left on their plate at the last meeting. They may have completely forgot about it, but remind them. You got to be the squeaky wheel. And then, of course, following up on attending meetings. And some kind of hints, if the official is non-committal, or if you think he or she can be swayed to support you, continue to apply pressure using your members, allies, and the media. This, of all the years I've been doing this stuff, this is the way you get their attention, as you show up in a meeting with 5, 10 other people that all have the same gripe that you do. And all of a sudden it's like they're listening. So that's a key thing. You need to develop support, as I say, number 12 here, a support group to bring along with you. And this has amazingly worked for me many times here, which I was really surprised. Get others to get involved and speak up, because these are local people. These are people that the municipal leaders, are people you might meet in the supermarket, or your kids might be on the soccer team with your kids, things of that nature. So you want to take advantage of being a local guy, and you want to also get other people in the community to realize that if they come to meetings and start talking up, they get attention. We just had something happen here in our township recently where 3 of the neighbors attended a meeting because they were having problems with Airbnb, which this area was not zoned for, and these Airbnbs are having big parties in the middle of the night, and the local people was all upset. Well, they went to the township meeting, and that was not an allowed use in that area. But a lot of times there's ordinances, but the township officials are not policemen going around enforcing these things unless local folks are the eyes and ears out there and pick up on stuff. Things will not get done. So again, that's the last item I had here. It's a lot easier for us to accomplish what we want to do if we have a team working on it rather than us doing it as an individual. And that's all I have to say. Sorry about the presentation not being as smooth as it should have been, but most of the stuff was just text. I didn't have any pretty pictures for you to look at, so you didn't miss much.
Steve, maybe you can quickly scroll through that entire document just so that folks can see how it's organized and stuff,
Sure,
since we
that's
missed
not a
that.
problem.
You had mentioned sharing this. What are your plans for, sharing this more broadly, receiving feedback from, folks that might be in this meeting or folks on the distribution list for these meetings? What's your plan, timeline, et cetera, for sharing this broadly and getting feedback?
I think Ian would be the one to address that since he's been kind of heading the show here.
Hey, Dave, could you restate that one more time?
Well, I was just wondering, Dave and Steve had both mentioned, I think, getting feedback from potential users, either who might be attending this meeting or who may have shown interest in this process at other meetings, or whoever. Basically just meaning like, when are you guys planning to make these documents, such as this document 5, make it more like broadly accessible to folks to review, to provide feedback on, and potentially even start using the knowledge that they're gaining from these resources if and when they are shared?
I think it depends on the level of engagement which they're expecting to want to have on these documents. If they really want to be about the helping with the creation of it, more of the creation side of things, then I would recommend they actually join the work group, because that not only would be helpful for us, we would have more perspective, more people who are end users being represented in that work group, but that level of engagement would be more along the lines that we have for the internal review process, where everything is still being worked on actively. We have maybe that first draft, it's about to be sent off to for some external review. If it's more of a cursory, I want to take a look at what you have in detail, maybe offer a suggestion here or there, that's more the external side of things. And that's when we're sending things out to basically this group. This group could be part of that external review process. This group has more of, or the EnviroDIY group as a whole has more of a, is our target audience. So they would be perfect for that external review to get their perspective on that. And then after that is done, then it's going to be more generally broadly available to volunteers or stewards that would like to make use of these documents. So that's sort of kind of at least where I envision this going. If other people from the work group have other ideas, feel free to share. We haven't talked about the specifics of that yet, but that was the general outline, which we discussed, I think, in last meeting.
So basically, if people want to be involved and get a look at this stuff, like now, they can attend the first Thursday monthly meeting and or just be in touch with you or me
Right.
or Dave or Steve. You know, there may be folks who are, you know, document 5, for instance, it's pretty nice right now. And I could see people wanting to just get that information so they can start moving on something. So, I mean, I would think, you know, just if people are interested in just getting the information that's being developed, it's there. And if you want it, maybe just be in touch and you can serve as sort of a pilot reviewer type person and which will, you know, give good feedback and also help you start building resources for your local work.
And document 5 is a little bit separate than the other 4 documents. It lives in an interesting state. It's more of a living document than anything else. As more, like I said, as more people see their eyes on it, they have more suggestions. Since the way you engage with municipalities, like Steve mentioned, is state by state and municipal by municipality different. Everyone's lived experience is going to be slightly different. They're going to have different tips and tricks. So the more people we get eyes on that document, more suggestions that we have, more case studies of what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's useful information
You
to
could
have.
almost envision building, and we talked about this, but you can envision building out a living document like that to have a, you know, a set of case studies that sort of just gives a flavor of how these municipalities can vary from one another and sort of strategies that work in one and work in another and comparing
Right.
and contrasting and seeing, oh, this one's most similar to mine, I'm going to go this approach or some, you know, along those.
And for now, what we're doing is we're keeping a little tight, close to the chest, just because we want to at least have a structure there. If there's no structure there and we open it up, it's going to become the Wild West.
Yeah.
And too much information can be just as overwhelming as not enough information. So we're developing that structure right now, or rather, Steve is developing the structure right now. And so once we get a little bit further ahead in the process, then I think we'll be ready to share it more generally, more broadly, and get more perspectives.
Well, it's great
But
work.
Oh, Dave, I just wanted to second what Dave suggested, and I think John Jackson, you mentioned this earlier on, that we should be taking some of these for a test drive, I think you called it. And, you know, the fact that we're starting to collect these things in a shared drive, there's no reason why we can't share it with the world and just limit their access to be a viewer or a commentator rather than an editor. And that way, you know, the key thing is to have the information in one place. So as people comment on it, they may kind of trigger something in someone else's head, or someone might say, hey, that's not going to work in this kind of situation. But the worst thing we can get into is having multiple comments coming in from multiple directions. So if we can keep this thing focused on using the share drive, and even I would suggest, Dave, that you put some links out there now out in the chat that people can get to the document and start taking a look at it, and just make sure that, you know, they're just going to be a viewer at this
Why
point
don't
in time.
we, Steve, Ian, Dave,
We can talk about that.
why don't we talk about this and come up with a way, because, you know, we could, for instance, send the list of draft documents with only, you know, suggestion mode available. I mean, we could send it to the entire distribution list for this meeting, which is over 200 people. If we want it, you know, there's a number of ways we could do it and just put it out there to start receiving feedback. But I think it just depends on really how we want to go about this. And it's probably a discussion for outside this meeting. But I think someone just put in the chat. Oh,
Could
okay.
I add a comment to what David is mentioning? Would that be okay?
Go ahead, Bert. Go ahead, Bert.
Yeah, I think the document has a lot of value. As I said earlier, I'm in New York State, Orange County, town of Deer Park, and I've been going to planning board, town board meetings for a couple of decades. And as I listened to Steve describe what he's learned and talking about what some of the components of the document, it does have a lot of value. And I think it would be useful to share it, because engaging, and like you were saying about local municipalities, and you used, I think people use the word trust and engagement. It really is very important. So I got a lot out of listening to this, and I've got a lot of experience in New York State trying to connect with these folks. So I think there's a lot of value to what you're describing. And I think what David's saying is share it.
So do you think this should be shared in the way that a wiki is shared? A communal document? Obviously you need some controls, but is that what you're thinking? Kind of letting it build up?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions about what works and what doesn't work in terms of engaging municipalities. But what Steve was describing in terms of the process, what was documented in some of the stuff I saw as he was scrolling through it, it really does have, my opinion is, it does have a lot of value. And so I think making it accessible, I mean, I'm not sure what the best way it is to go about doing that. Maybe talk about that outside this meeting, but I really believe it has a lot of value. And I think where I am in Deer Park, Orange County, we've got a lot of people saying do X, Y, Z. This document may have value in having us have a cohesive strategy. So that's my opinion. Am I answering your question?
Well, I was asking everyone.
Oh,
I
okay.
was asking, especially those who have developed it so far. Also, what you think of, is that what you're leaning towards? It's a change, right? It's a change from how you had conceived it.
Well, again, this is not like a step by step, since everything, there's variations from one place to another. It's not a step by step process that's going to work everywhere, but maybe 5 out of the 10 steps work or whatever. But someone can use it as, even right now as is, and doesn't necessarily have to make revisions for other people to use it the way they're using it. Because as Burton mentioned, it has some value already. So why do we want to
Yes.
keep holding it back? Let's put it out there. It's, as long as it's not going to cause any problems or cause people to
Yeah, I
the
mean,
wrong path. I mean, that's the
it-
key thing.
But I'm getting
yeah,
to the idea of how do you add to it and how do you curate it?
well,
So
I think the way we add to it is by, like I mentioned today, we put it out there as something that could be commented on at this point in time. And then whoever reviews it and feels strongly that something should be changed, and they can make that comment and we can review it and then maybe change it. I don't think that it's, I just don't want to keep waiting and waiting, because as you notice, we have a lot more work to do here. There's 4 documents, 5 documents altogether, plus the supplemental ones. And how many months have been working on this, and we're still on document 1. I mean, everybody's doing a lot of work for sure,
yeah,
but we want this stuff to get out there as soon as we can. I mean, the proverbial stuff's hitting the fan these days. We see the federal government is not doing its job. It's time for municipalities, especially like state of Pennsylvania, where the municipalities do have certain powers to start doing stuff. So the sooner we can help in that effort, I think the better off we're all going to be. But preaching to the choir here, I'm sure.
I'm going to say it's probably something that we should discuss at our next work group meeting, in the sense that the one worry I have is that this document will propagate out of our control, and that we'll find, dozens and dozens of different versions all across the country that no longer acknowledge who wrote the document, how it was vetted, etc. And the evolution of all those individual documents into something we might not recognize or, want to stay behind.
But
So
is
I
that a
think-
problem if those revisions work in the areas where they're being used? I mean, what's the whole purpose here? We're not creating like a
Yeah,
version of the Bible.
I'd worry about individuals plagiarizing the document and changing the document, and we have multiple forms of a document that may not be what we consider appropriate in terms of interactions. I'd like to have a document that people can attribute to our group. And so like I
there's no
said, maybe-
reason why we can't do that, Dave. I mean, we could put some type of logo on here or whatever, and
Yeah,
that
I mean,
particular
that's
version will be
that's what
ours,
we have
but-
to discuss.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what we
yeah, I mean,
There's a process to
That's
this.
it.
There's a procedure to this. We haven't put enough thought into how we want to do that. That this review process is still in its infancy. So that's a great idea for, like Dave Manning said, what we should talk about in this next meeting as a whole leadership group, because it's not just us. There are others in the leadership group, many of which who are not here today. So I'd like to get their perspective on it, and it would be a great way to continue conversation.
well, and another important component is it's not partisan. It's very reasonable. It's based on a lot of experience. And my opinion is it would have a lot of value. You know, so and I'm going to have to go because I've got a 4 o'clock commitment that I've got to attend to. But thank you very much. It was really very helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Bert, and thanks, Ian and Dave and Steve and Carol. Let's continue the conversation, and there's also the possibility of setting up, if a meeting prior to the next August meeting, if we want to do something like that, just to get ahead of it. So let's all just be in touch, and and we'll just move ahead with it. And we've got obviously a lot of good feedback and a lot of good ideas. So
And a lot of energy behind this. It's great.
yeah,
Yeah, thank
Interest.
you very much.
Yeah,
I've got
I
to
would
leave.
make
I'm
one
sorry,
comment, if I might. One comment. So BWA, we're Watershed Association Monroe, and we're trying to work with some municipalities on getting them to give us permission to put mayfly loggers on township property. And so, theoretically, if you can pull that off, now you have really, committed buy-in. And then if you periodically approach them with, hey, here's the data, here's what, that might be a great way to sort of accomplish our goals too. Most municipalities have land on creeks one way or the other. And so, we have it on the agenda probably for the 26th of July to put one on a kind of a critical area in a watershed where there's not much public land. And so just an idea, we'll see if they give us permission, but I don't know. Do you guys have any, I'm not saying municipalities that manage the loggers, but municipalities that give you permission as a watershed association to put the loggers on public land for the purpose of data collection?
I believe the
We have a
NCI
logger.
sensor
I'm sorry.
is.
Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, no, you go ahead, Steve.
We have one that's installed behind, it's on public land. It's county property, but it was actually underneath I think originally the conservation district in Berks County, along with the master watershed stewards, asked for permission to place it there. But we don't have any in our specific municipality, because we don't have any public land along waterways in the township I live in.
But David Bressler probably could answer that.
yeah. I mean, there's a number of cases where the people have worked with the local government to put those on. There's one, at least one in Westchester, for instance.
West
well as,
Pikeland.
like Steve's, and I think Megan, who's on here, I think she worked with the Westchester folks to put it on government property.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like various ways that one can go about that. I think based on some conversations I've had with some people, it might really not be such a great idea for the municipality to buy the loggers and put them on there. It might be good to have because watershed associations actually can get direct contributions from municipalities in Pennsylvania, and it's actually written into the second-class township code that they can do that. So one method is to use to serve as a, you ask for appropriate, or if you have it already, but one could ask for appropriations, build a logger, put it in on public land, and that really gets buy-in. And then I think a great strategy is just once every 6 months, just do a 4-minute presentation on what the data is showing. And, you know, this is what's interesting, this is what's not interesting, but here it is. And thanks for your, you know,
Yeah, and
partnership or something
that's
like
that's an interesting idea to build into one of these or these resource documents. Just that type of kind of recommended protocol for monitoring and integrating that type of monitoring at that local level to sort of just do it collaboratively and in a communicative way where you're reporting regularly and involving. Oh, Megan does indicate she worked with the West Goshen Sewer Authority. And there's also one on Westchester Borough property. So we should probably call it, if that's okay with everyone. We've recorded all this, so people will get lots of good discussion. But let's just be in touch. And as far as like making these documents available to others, let's think about it a little more and maybe revisit next week with a meeting or the week after or something and go from there. And we'll let Ian and Dave and Steve take the lead on that. Sound good, everyone?
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you, David. Thanks, everyone.
Have
Thanks,
a good
everyone.
evening.